Hey, gamers! Today, we're going to delve into the game as filled with ancient creatures that exude a futuristic sci-fi vibe. The game's post-apocalyptic setting is right up my alley and I couldn't resist it. I completed the previous title, Zero Dawn, and even got the platinum in the sequel, Forbidden West. The game's content is massive, with a massive open world that's begging to be explored. The numerous question marks and interesting spots on the map are definitely worth investigating. There are few fetch quests or meaningless tasks. The game is packed with genuine content. The combat system is incredibly satisfying, and the mechanical beasts are absolutely stunning. The battles are fancier than scenes from a sci-fi movie. I poured over 60 hours into this game. In this video, I'll be sharing my gaming experience, introducing the game mechanics, combat system, useful tips, and even my complaints, all while trying my best to avoid spoilers. Alright then, let's get started. Horizon Forbidden West is set in a world 1,000 years after an apocalyptic event. Earth is now filled with war machines and other robotic creatures, while humanity has regressed to a primitive state. There are no major nations, only scattered tribes living across the world. It's a fascinating and conflicting juxtaposition of primitive human life and advanced robotic technology coexisting in the same world. The advanced humans, known as the Old Ones, are no longer on Earth. The game world is vast, with a richly imagined timeline and expansive spatial dimensions, allowing for endless possibilities. The story of Forbidden West takes place 6 months after the events of the first game. The protagonist, Aloy, embarks on a mission to stop the spreading red blight, a deadly disease threatening the world. To uncover the truth, she ventures into the forbidden lands of the West, unraveling a series of mysteries. It's worth noting that it's highly recommended to play the previous title Zero Dawn before diving into Forbidden West. The story is a direct continuation, and many game mechanics and characters are carried over from the first title. Several characters from the first game have significant roles in the sequel. Playing Horizon Zero Dawn will greatly enhance your experience in Forbidden West. However, the game also considers new players, providing various means to quickly understand the world and the storyline at the beginning, allowing you to catch up. Compared to the first game, Forbidden West introduces new machines while also delving deeper into the portrayal of surviving humans. Players will face not only the machines but also formidable enemies in the form of primitive tribal humans. Each tribe has its unique culture and customs, ranging from warlike tribes always seeking conflicts to agricultural tribes focusing on crafts and weaving, as well as practical tribes developing industrial-like technology. It's truly fascinating. One tribe that left a lasting impression on me is the Utaru tribe living in a place called Plainsol. The Utaru are an agricultural tribe that worships the mechanical triceratops, considering the machines as gods. It highlights the tendency of humans to worship and fear the unknown. Even though the machines are creations of science and technology, the tribal humans cannot comprehend their power and directly worship them as deities. It makes me wonder if ancient civilizations in the real world had a similar approach, considering prehistoric and ancient civilizations they couldn't understand as gods. Horizon series has always been known for its stunning visuals, and Horizon Forbidden West continues to push the boundaries. The game's graphics are simply breathtaking, and you can capture screenshots at any moment that could easily be used as desktop wallpapers. The previous title, released 6 years ago, already had jaw-dropping visuals, but Forbidden West takes it to the next level. This game showcases various terrains with different climates, and the day-night cycles add even more diversity. I've spent a significant amount of time just standing on mountaintops, marveling at the landscapes. Let me share some beautiful clips. The music in Horizon Forbidden West is equally impressive. The game's theme song, In the Flood, is a masterpiece. It's one of the few game soundtracks in recent years that left a deep impression on me. The music perfectly captures the emotional journey of the protagonist, Aloy, and reflects her sense of solitude and the burden of saving the world on her own. The audio-visual experience of the game is truly immersive. In terms of haptic feedback, the game has successfully implemented it to provide a realistic sense of touch. Different types of arrows have a distinct feel when drawn, especially when using precision arrows for long-range attacks. The tightness of the bowstring can be felt through the haptic feedback and the sound effects from the game controller, enhancing the overall experience. I want to highlight the exceptional level of detail in character expressions and body movements. It's undoubtedly top-notch and comparable to that of movies. The characters in Forbidden West exhibit natural and nuanced expressions and body language. The dialogue writing is also commendable, with conversations feeling natural and even humorous at times. There are several instances where the dialogues made me laugh. Each character has a distinct personality, and their dialogues are so well crafted that it's evident how much effort was put into the game's development. Overall, Horizon Forbidden West excels in its visual fidelity, mesmerizing music, immersive haptic feedback, and remarkable character performances. It's clear that the developers poured their hearts and souls into creating a truly exceptional gaming experience. The combat in Horizon Forbidden West offers distinct strategies for engaging human enemies in melee combat, and machine enemies in long-range battles. When facing human enemies, they are usually armored and wear masks that protect them from long-range attacks, making it less efficient to rely solely on ranged attacks to eliminate them. While it is possible to defeat human enemies using long-range attacks, it may take longer to dispatch them. On the other hand, when encountering machine enemies, it becomes apparent that relying solely on melee attacks throughout the entire game is not a viable option, especially against stronger and more formidable adversaries in the later stages. Players are encouraged to use long-range attacks and to exploit the weak points of the machine. One of the enjoyable aspects of the game is the ability to target and destroy specific components of the mechanical creatures to acquire valuable resources for crafting equipment or to disable their weaponry. This mechanic bears some resemblance to the gameplay found in the Monster Hunter series. Speaking of the combat system, let me introduce the game's skill system first. The skill tree is divided into different focuses. The warrior, who excels in melee combat. The trapper, who specializes in setting traps. The hunter, who focuses on long-range attacks. The survivor, who emphasizes healing and durability. The infiltrator, who specializes in stealth. And the machine master, who enhances machine riding abilities. Each skill tree includes both active and passive skills, as well as the ultimate ability called Valor Surge, which significantly strengthens Aloy and provides various effects that can turn the tide of battle. However, despite the complex of the skill tree and the potential for different playstyles, it doesn't work out that way in practice. As mentioned before, the game encourages players to use melee combat against human enemies and long-range attacks against machine enemies. You're unlikely to be successful if you fully invest in the warrior tree without any hunter skills, and it would be a frustrating experience. Furthermore, in the early and mid-game, the threat posed by machine enemies is greater than that of human enemies, and there aren't many opportunities to ride machines. This further limits the freedom of playstyles. I believe most players' skill point allocation is somewhat constrained by the game's progression, resulting in similar skill builds. Let me share my own skill allocation as an example. I initially invested in hunter and survivor skills with a bit of infiltrator. Then, I started focusing on warrior skills in the mid-game, gradually maxing out hunter, survivor, and warrior. Infiltrator skills were also maxed out, with some points allocated to the trapper tree. Finally, if there were any remaining skill points, I invested them in the Machine Master tree. However, I feel that the trap in this title have been significantly weakened and aren't very effective. The enemy seems to be good at avoiding traps, and in the early stages, resources are scarce. Additionally, stepping on your own traps triggers them, causing significant damage. In this installment, Aloy is often surrounded and chaotic situations are common, requiring constant evasive movement over long distances. The battlefield is vast, and it expands during battles, making it difficult to remember trap placements. Instead of spending a lot of time setting traps, it's often more effective to start with stealth or long-range attacks. It's a pity because I probably only placed traps fewer than 20 times until I reached complete the game. Now, let's talk about the active skills. I also feel that there aren't many highly effective active skills. Combat is often chaotic, and you have to be mindful of not being overwhelmed while dodging, drinking potions, and aiming at specific parts on machines. It's quite busy. While the game offers a variety of active skills, I found myself using only 2 or 3 of them most frequently until I completed the game. On the other hand, Valor Surge is a well-designed ability that significantly enhances Aloy and comes in different styles, allowing you to choose the most suitable one for the situation at hand. I want to remind the viewers who haven't played yet that Valor Surge has special effects at the 3rd level, often greatly enhancing its usefulness. It's a good idea to check all the 3rd level effects of Valor Surge before deciding whether to invest in it or not. Let's get back to the combat system. As mentioned earlier, this title features a wide variety of human enemies, which allows for more diverse melee combat options and strategies. There are light attacks and heavy attacks, and as you engage in combat, you accumulate energy on your weapons, which can be used to trigger a resonance marker. Shooting an arrow at the resonance marker triggers a resonator blast. In the later stages of the game, performing a whole combo, including suspended bullet time, followed by a resonator blast, looks incredibly cool, like watching a movie. The active skills in melee combat require you to attack with specific pace, alternating between pauses and attacks or combining light and heavy attacks. For example, light pause, light, or light pause, light pause, etc. There are many different combos available in the later stages of the game, and it takes a bit of practice to use them smoothly. Some skills allow you to break through enemy defenses, and some help you accumulate energy quickly to trigger resonator blasts. Now let's talk about battles with the machines. When fighting machines, it's important to focus on attacking weak points or destroying the parts of the enemy's weaponry. However, the most crucial aspect is elemental damage. This game introduces several additional elemental types. The elemental types including fire, frost, shock, explosives, purge water, adhesive, acid, and plasma. Each machine has weaknesses and resistances to different elements, so it's essential to use the focus scan before engaging in combat to identify weak points and elemental vulnerabilities. Elemental attacks can significantly weaken machines, but it's also possible to ignore elemental weaknesses and still be effective. Some elemental types are particularly useful, even if they are not the machine's specific weakness. For example, frost and plasma are versatile. When a machine is affected by frost, the damage it receives from arrows significantly increases, making it useful in many situations. Plasma, on the other hand, accumulates damage while the machine is under its effect, and when the effect ends, it deals substantial damage. In the later stages of the game, I often switch to frost or plasma right from the start of a battle. They are really effective. Regular ranged attacks can be divided into two types, impact and tier. Impact is the standard long-range damage from regular arrows, while tier attacks allow you to dislodge machine parts and armor. Tier attacks are especially important when facing powerful enemies. You can use tier attacks from a distance to remove a machine's weapons, significantly reducing the difficulty of the encounter. Some machines drop heavy weapons that you can pick up and use as well. Speaking of equipment, in the game, you can obtain equipment not only through quests but also by purchasing them from merchants. Both weapons and armor can be upgraded. After upgrading, they not only increase their base stats but also provide additional effects. They may give you different types of arrows or ammunition or provide new coil slots for customization. These coil slots allow you to insert coils with different effects to personalize your equipment. To upgrade your equipment, you can strategize by targeting specific parts of the mechanical beast to destroy or dismantle and obtain material. This aspect gives a reminiscent feel of the Monster Hunter series. Each machine drops metal shards, which serve as the in-game currency and material for upgrading equipment and crafting arrows. This design is quite clever as it prevents you from having too much money that goes unused, avoiding the dilemma of hoarding it without knowing what to do. This game offers a wide variety of weapon types. There's the versatile hunter's bow, the close-range specialized warrior's bow, the long-range specialized sharpshooter's bow, the blast slings for element building up, the rope casters for restraining machines, the spike throwers for explosive attacks, and the shredder gauntlets for dismantling parts. There are even more options beyond these mentioned. When I first started playing, it was truly overwhelming with so many choices. Each weapon has its own unique effects, and you also need to consider their elemental attributes. It's ideal to have a collection of weapons that cover all the attributes because otherwise, it can be very challenging when encountering a weak point that you cannot exploit. So, weapon selection is both crucial and difficult. However, the spike throwers is somewhat special. Its explosive attack is incredibly useful, and I use it in nearly 70% of my battles in the later stages of the game. In terms of quests, the game offers a wide variety of quests and events. Surprisingly, over 80% of these events and puzzle-solving activities are quite interesting, without feeling too tedious. Even the quests that may seem the most laborious, like the Rebellion outposts, are actually quite enjoyable, with very little repetitive experiences. The game has an intense density of exploration and question marks, but completing them doesn't feel too tedious. It's truly impressive how the game manages to achieve this balance. The exploration and puzzle-solving content in the game is extensive and worth discussing. I plan to make a detailed video to introduce them. Let me briefly introduce two of the most interesting ones and one that I find the least engaging. One of the interesting events is the Tall Necks event. On the game map, there are several tall necks scattered around that you can climb on to reveal parts of the map, similar to the mechanism of synchronizing viewpoints in Assassin's Creed series. I remember in the previous title, you could simply climb up the giraffe and uncover the map. However, in this game, the tall necks puzzles are super interesting. Each tall necks is unique and creatively designed. Finally reaching the top and uncovering the map gives a great sense of achievement. The map feature is also very useful as it allows you to immediately see the facilities and points of interest in the area. I highly recommend starting with the Tall Necks events in unexplored areas. Another interesting event is the Cauldrons events. After completing the Cauldrons events, you can unlock new rideable machines. The Cauldrons events are full of puzzle elements, with moderate difficulty. They require some time and mental effort to complete. It may take almost an hour to finish one Cauldrons event, and it somewhat resembles the feeling of solving shrines in The Legend of Zelda. It's quite fascinating. In summary, if you are not interested in experiencing all the puzzle elements or events, I highly recommend at least trying the Tall Necks events and Cauldrons events. They are truly enjoyable. Lastly, I found one aspect that didn't quite live up to expectations and don't recommend specifically pursuing: the Vista Points. These quests present you with a blurry scene from 1,000 years ago, from the ancient world, and ask you to find the location nearby to understand the difference between 1,000 years ago and now. There are some small stories within these quests. The concept itself is interesting, but the actual experience is quite poor. Firstly, it is extremely difficult to find the location. I spent nearly an hour searching in a small area, going round and round, and still couldn't find it. The experience was really frustrating. Finally, when I found it, the rewards were disappointing, and the backstory of the scene was average, not particularly compelling. Completing it made me feel like I wasted my time. Speaking of side quests, they are exceptionally well crafted, with intriguing and complete stories that give a sense of The Witcher 3's vibe. I highly recommend completing as many side quests as possible to experience them. I've completed almost all of the side quests, and many of them are a series of quests that take you from town to town. The rewards after completing these quests are great, providing not only a substantial amount of experience points and skill points, but also unlocking shops at times. Sometimes, the NPC who gave you the quest becomes the chef in the next town, allowing you to buy delicious dishes. This game hardly has those tedious fetch quests where you collect a certain number of materials. Even if there are some fetch quests, the background stories and logic behind them are reasonable and not boring. In conclusion, I highly recommend the side quests in this game. Alright, now I'd like to share some game settings that can significantly enhance your gaming experience. First, let's talk about the visuals. The game offers 3 options: a 4 Kelvin high-resolution mode at 30 FPS, a balanced mode, and a performance mode with a lower resolution but running at 60 FPS. The balanced mode was actually added as an update about 6 months after the game's release. I highly recommend the balanced mode. It strikes a great balance between visual quality and performance. It's almost like experiencing high-quality 4 Kelvin visuals with smooth gameplay at 60 FPS, with very little noticeable difference in visual quality. Next is the weapon wheel slowdown. I suggest choosing the slowest setting. It gives you more time to decide which weapon to switch to during combat. It can be quite handy. Then there's the pickup setting. I highly recommend setting it to auto pickup. This significantly improves the gaming experience. Otherwise, picking up herbs and branches can become quite annoying. As for the climbing annotations, it's a matter of personal preference. Having them enabled makes it much more convenient, but I personally find some joy in finding my own path, so I chose not to have them on. Lastly, there's the option for automatic sprinting while walking, although I recommend enabling it. There are moments when you may want to walk or make slight adjustments to your position, so it can be a bit annoying. You can decide for yourself, but I personally have it enabled. These settings should enhance your gameplay experience and make your journey even more enjoyable. Alright, it's time to talk about my complaints about this game. First, there's a noticeable frequency of character clipping and bugs. Throughout my 60+ hours of gameplay, I encountered bugs about 6 or 7 times. The bug occurrence isn't so high that it becomes unbearable, but it's also not low enough to be ignored. It does disrupt the immersion and overall gaming experience. Second, the climbing and jumping mechanics are quite challenging. Personally, I find it unenjoyable when a not-platform game makes climbing and jumping overly difficult. There's an odd sense of disconnect when controlling Aloy in these segments. It feels like she's agile yet clunky at the same time, which isn't fun. These segments are particularly prone to causing motion sickness in 3D environments. Often, I would think a jump is easily achievable, but end up falling and having to start over. It can be really frustrating. Normally, I don't mind challenging segments like these in games. It can be fun to have players fail often, unable to make certain jumps, creating a desire to retry and succeed. However, this game clearly didn't execute these segments well. Failing feels purely unpleasant, without that sense of determination to try again. Instead of blaming oneself, it makes you question the game's design. Climbing is also often non-intuitive, as it's unclear when to press the X button to jump off. The automatic climbing feature is also a bit too automated, often causing the character to climb past where you intended. Overall, the experience with jumping and climbing is not very good. It's quite annoying sometimes, but despite these complaints, I believe the positives far outweigh the negatives. Overall, I highly recommend getting this game. Just for the breathtaking visuals alone, it's worth it. I spent maybe around 3 to 4 hours just admiring the in-game visuals, taking photos and recording videos. The story is also a major selling point. The script and world building are truly more captivating than about 70 to 80% of the sci-fi movies I've seen. It's engaging, and even the performances of the game's characters rival those of many real-life actors. The facial expressions, detailed movements, and lifelike gestures make them truly fleshed out and full of soul. The game's presentation is truly astonishing, reaching a whole new level for the next generation. The gameplay itself is at least above average, if not top-notch. Destroying the different machines' components never gets tiresome. Even when I was nearing the endgame and didn't really need any more materials, I couldn't resist dismantling their parts. It's genuinely fun. The puzzles are also a great joy. The game offers various types of puzzles, and while some can be a bit frustrating, the majority of them are enjoyable and require real brain power. It's rewarding and satisfying. In conclusion, I highly recommend this game. Alright, thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.